Brock is best known for two things: hitting on virtually every woman he ever comes across,
Wild Brock is here to make your wildest dreams come true.
and his rock-hard Pokemon. His words, not mine. In the show, he's not often viewed as a strong trainer because he's more of the nurturing type. But I have modified this version of Pokemon Leaf Green to play through it as Brock, to show that he can be a tough trainer. In between his obsession with women, of course.
Please tell me your name so I may emblazon it upon my heart.
I will attempt to beat this as a hardcore Nuzlocke, using only the Pokemon Brock did in the show. Before we begin, do you have a favorite Brock quote? Mine has to be this one.
Hey, I know. I'll use my trusty frying pan as a drying pan.
Brock starts off in what appears to be just another normal house. But going downstairs, we quickly find this house is as full as a 90s sitcom. As a matter of fact, Brock has a whopping 9 siblings. Something quite unheard of in this day and age.
Boris, Salvador, and Yolanda, Tommy, Cindy, Susie, Timmy, Tilly, and Billy.
Both his mom and dad are horrible people, leaving their younger kids in Brock's care so they can travel around the world doing whatever the heck they want.
His good-for-nothing father left the family to become a Pokemon trainer, and they never heard from him again.
Say what you will about Brock, for all his faults, he did step up and become the responsible one in the family, becoming an excellent cook and caretaker. Unlike Ash, who lives in Pallet Town, Brock obviously lives in Pewter, so he doesn't have to commute to the gym every day. This means he doesn't have to go through the Viridian Forest, because he didn't in the show either. Before officially starting the run, here is Brock's trainer card, and his starter Pokemon, a Geodude. Geodude was one of the 2 Pokemon Brock started with in the anime, the other one being his Onix. We don't know when he got Geodude, but Sandstone seemed like an appropriate starter. I didn't start with Onix for a reason that will be apparent in just a moment. As much as he would like to, Brock can't leave Pewter City, because that would force his siblings to fend for themselves, something that he is too responsible to do, unlike his parents.
And do you think your kids were gonna cook for themselves?
But as fate would have it, Flint has returned home and is waiting in the gym. The resemblance here is quite striking. This loser agrees to have a battle to see who will stay here to manage the gym and raise his kids. I feel like he could just come back and accept his parental responsibilities, but come on, that's giving this deadbeat far too much credit. Rather than have 2 Pokemon, Flint only has Onix, but I didn't change his moveset. This Rock Snake does have insanely high defense, much better than my Geode, but attack-wise, he is on par with a little Pidgey, having only 45 base attack compared to my Geodude's 80. That being said, I didn't expect his tackle to do only 1 damage every time, but that's fine by me. My Rock Throw, because of stab and higher attack, actually does something. Even though Onix's Rock Tomb would be a much stronger move than tackle, okay, maybe much is an exaggeration, Flint won't use it because he already outspeeds, and the AI in Gen 3 won't use speed lowering moves if they're already faster. The end result is that he uses Tackle and sometimes Bind, which is obviously more concerning because of the repeated hits. If he had used Bind at the start, and consistently, I might have actually lost. As it is, Flint is not a successful trainer. That's the whole reason he came back, and so 12 Rock Throws and 1 Tackle later, okay, scratch that, make that 2 tackles later, and Brock has defeated his good-for-nothing father. He shouldn't have left in the first place, and when it became obvious that he was a failure as a trainer, he should have come right back rather than being a creepy old guy hanging around Pewter City and trying to help random little kids.
Take me to this Brock's gym. I'll beat him.
Ha ha ha. You'll beat him. Ha ha ha.
For my victory, Flint gives me a badge that Brock probably already had. The Rock Tomb TM, but most importantly, an Onix. Onix was Brock's first Pokemon, given to him by Flint when he was still pretending to be a good father.
Wow, sounds like your dad's pretty cool, huh, Brock?
I guess.
Flashback.
You mean you're the good-for-nothing father who left home and never came back?
That's right. It was me.
Putting that aside though, since this Onix was a present, look how cute he is with his bow and everything. Given the circumstances, I decide to name my Onix Flint, and Brock is now set to leave Pewter to become the best ever Pokemon breeder. Even though Pokemon didn't lay eggs back in Kanto, so what was he breeding them for? Regardless, Flint now gets the chance to learn how to be a father. Good luck, sucker, I'm out of here. After doing one last very important thing, flirting with Nurse Joy. This wouldn't be a Brock run without excessive, unnecessary, and unwanted advances towards women.
By the way, are you by any chance related to the Joy in Gringy City?
I'm her cousin.
But you're much, much prettier than she is.
With that out of the way, I make my way to Mount Moon, where I get the very first Pokemon Brock caught, a Zubat. This is a weird encounter though, because in the show, we don't actually see Brock catch it. Instead, when the Zubat appears out of thin air sometime later, Brock explains that he caught it earlier.
I captured it just before we entered the cave.
Oh, I should have caught one.
I know I've given Onix a lot of hate, because Onix sucks, but in the early game, his lack of attack isn't a huge deal, and his defenses more than make up for it. What I'm trying to say is that Flint, almost on his own, gets me through the entirety of Mount Moon. Video game Brock does actually use these fossil Pokemon, specifically his Kanto team in Gen 2, but anime Brock never did, so I unfortunately can't use them. In Cerulean, I know that my current team has no chance to beat Misty, but before I make any drastic changes here, I want to give it a try. I am only at the second gym after all. I start with Flint. In the off chance he outspeeds the Staryu, he tries to Screech, but never gets the chance thanks to a Water Pulse. Meteor comes out next. Staryu hardens, which makes Wing Attack weaker, but it's better than an immediate Water Pulse. She starts to bite instead, since Dark is special in Gen 3, and manages to survive even a crit Water Pulse before knocking out the first star. The real problem though, is the second slightly larger, but by far stronger, star. Meteor immediately dies to a Water Pulse, and Sandstone obviously never had a chance. Yeah, that was completely expected. I did consider moving up his next Pokemon to get Vulpix before this gym. After all, according to Brock,
Water types, and they're totally weak against fire type.
But that wouldn't do anything for me. So I need to figure out something else. I think I have a plan though. First, let's start back up and rebattle with Flint. This time, I get even closer to losing because Flint actually uses Bind more consistently. Sandstone still does win, and I once again get an Onix. I get to Cerulean for a second time, and realize I forgot to do something very important in my last run. Flirt with Nurse Joy again. What did you expect? If a woman exists, Brock will make a fool of himself. It's the circle of life. Unfortunately for Brock, though fortunately for all women everywhere, his unwanted attention has caused him to become a person of interest. So anticipating a weakened team after the Misty fight, I head north to encounter my rival, a cop who was sent to apprehend me. Though Officer Jenny may not have been the best pick. You know, because she's quite an attractive woman.
I was wondering, since I'm new in town, maybe we could get together tonight and you could show me around.
Well, I'm not off duty till past your bedtime.
Jenny does not have a specific team, so I'm going to be using this Bulbapedia page to give her Pokemon Jennies all over the world have used before, starting with Pidgeotto. Flint defeats one bird with 2 stones. Paris does have Absorb, so I pivot into Meteor. She hasn't learned Wing Attack just yet, because it's at the level cap, but Bite flinches 3 times in a row. Talk about awesome. Too bad Meteor is hit at the very end and couldn't go the distance. This brings out her ace, obviously a Growlithe. He may not look intimidating, ability or no, but having access to the special move Bite is quite intimidating. Still, Sandstone survives another non-crit, Rock Throw doesn't miss, thankfully, and that Fire Pup is down. So for now, I have resisted law enforcement's efforts to squash my free speech. Kanto is a free country. For people, not so much for Pokemon. So I can talk to whomever I want. I'm not talking to Misty just yet though, because my naive Meteor needs some speed EVs first. She's already decently fast, but I need to ensure that she outspeeds Staryu this time, which is precisely what happens. The first Wing Attack does quite a bit more than I expected. Staryu uses Harden, but it's not enough to save him on the second hit. This is already going much better. She levels up in preparation for Starmie. Starmie outspeeds, of course, to get a crit Water Pulse, knocking her right out. Dang it, it looks like I spoke too soon. If she had gotten in a few hits before dying, which was possible thanks to an Oran Berry, Meteor might have been my only sacrifice. As it is, I now need to sack Sandstone as well. You see, I changed the code here a bit, so Sturdy works the same way it does in future generations, meaning it's actually useful. This lets Sandstone survive a Water Pulse that does enough to kill him like 3 times over, he heals the confusion with a Person Berry, glad I was prepared for that, and makes the ultimate sacrifice, self-destructing, so that Flint can be the sole survivor of this massacre. Losing 2/3 of my team is not what I'd call a satisfying victory, but it's better than 3/3. I know fractions. Since Geodude didn't evolve in the show, mine wouldn't have evolved anyway, so I was prepared to lose him at some point in the run, just not so early. Meteor though, not so much. And even though he's dead, he still evolves into Golbat. I allow it, since this did happen in the show. Actually, this evolution caused Golbat's Supersonic to be too strong, crushing Brock's dreams of marrying this random doctor girl he just met.
Brock, I'm sorry, I meant your Golbat's too strong. When I tried to measure the strength of your Golbat Supersonic, it overloaded my computer.
Golbat evolves some 30 episodes later when he's too slow to catch up with Team Rocket using only 2 wings. After all, 4 is faster than 2. And by some weird coincidence, this episode also contained a lady that Brock wanted to stay with. But because of circumstances beyond his control, that didn't end up happening. Regardless, with 2 dead Pokemon leaving me with only the weak attacking Onix, this run just got a whole lot more difficult. Since I expected those deaths, I had already cleared all the trainers up to Bill's house, so I can do that really quick, and once I get the Dig TM, Flint will hit even harder, albeit just a tiny bit. She has a really close call against that Rocket Grunt, as Drowsy disables Rock Slide, but she still does win with only 7 HP left. That fight has never been difficult for me. This does not bode well. I immediately teach him Dig and hope that is enough for the 3rd gym. First, on the SSN, I will get another encounter in Vulpix. Brock was given temporary custody of Vulpix by Susie, a famous Pokemon breeder, and one that Brock looked up to.
Yes?
My name's Brock. Nice to meet you, Susie. I want to breed like you. I want to be a breeder like you.
Vulpix never evolved though, so mine won't either. Officer Jenny, not to be stopped after a single loss, has followed me onto a boat to take me into custody. But Brock has the cringiest response. Alright Brock. Once again, Jenny starts with Pidgeotto. Flint is sand attacked, but defeats the bird with a rock throw and Rage. This brings out her newest Pokemon, Squirtle. Now this would be a huge issue, but since Flint is 8 levels higher, I'm putting her basically at the level cap, she should be able to survive a single non-crit water gun. So she screeches, Squirtle withdraws, and then tail whips? Not what I was expecting, but let's get Flint to end that Squirtle with a single rock throw. This baits out a Paris with an Absorb. Or Stun Spore, that works too. Either way, in her debut fight, Charcoal one-shots with Ember. Last is Jenny's ace, Growlithe, which means I have nothing to worry about. Charcoal confuses and lowers his defenses a bit, before pivoting to Flint to finish the battle with another rock throw. I'll be honest with you here, as if I haven't been already. I expected another wipe there, solely because of her Squirtle. Since Surge does have 3 Pokemon, I allow myself to backtrack a bit to Viridian Forest for another encounter. No, not you Pikachu, though that is pretty rare. I want a Pineco. Brock's first attempt at catching a Pineco is not the smoothest thing you'll ever see. Far from it, in fact.
Ready or not, here I come, Pineco!
But he eventually gets one with a fastball? Correct me if I'm wrong, aren't those supposed to be used for, not slow Pokemon? Pineco has a whopping 15 base speed, so not what I would consider fastball material, but it somehow works out. I get mine in a regular old Pokeball, like a normal person. This brings us to Surge. To avoid Flint getting Sonic Boom too much, I start with Charcoal instead. She gets in 2 Embers, taking a Shockwave and a Sonic Boom. At this HP, I'm hoping Quick Attack can finish it off, but it barely misses out on the kill, and Voltorb almost knocks her out too. Well, so much for starting with her. Flint comes out on a Tackle, does take a Sonic Boom, and digs the real fastball. Pikachu is going to double team, and I just have to keep digging, hoping for a hit. The first one misses, but the second one does hit. That wasn't so bad. Raichu would survive a non-crit dig, so first Flint screeches to lower his defenses. She then tries a rock throw just to see. It misses, and then I'm prepared to waste all of my dig PP here. But the first one hits, so that was awesome. In all honesty, it doesn't really take much to defeat Surge, so let's not get too excited here. On to Rock Tunnel. I have a couple of close calls making it through here, The first trainer, for example, gets all of my Pokemon basically down to the red thanks to his Slowpoke. You can ignore that Sandshrew, he's just used for HMs. Flint outspeeds and takes out most of the other rock Pokemon with Dig, thankfully, so I don't have to worry about their ground moves. I eventually make it out with no losses and decide that now would be a good time to see Officer Jenny again in the Pokemon Tower. And Brock can't help himself. Flint defeats this bird, as always, with a Rock Throw and a Rage. On Wartortle, I pivot to Shipworm the Pinecone. In case you were wondering, Shipworm is a type of bug that sometimes eats rocks, so I figured it was a good enough name. Either way, she learns Takedown pretty early, so with 2 of those hits, Wartortle is defeated. She clearly baits out an Ember from Growlithe that Charcoal can absorb for more firepower. 2 Flamethrowers defeats the Fire Dog. Another one takes out that bug, and last is Jenny's newest Pokemon, Ghastly. He too falls in a single hit. Before she leaves, Brock makes sure to get one last quib in because he always has to have the last word, even when it's complete nonsense. In Celadon, Brock finds a kindred spirit, shall we say, in this old Peeping Tom. That'll be Brock in 50 years if he doesn't change his ways, and somehow becomes white. Erica's gym is like a dream come true for someone like Brock, so he rushes right into this battle. Being a rock-type specialist, this would be a tough battle if it weren't for Charcoal, who learns Flamethrower right at the level cap. Victory Bell is one shot with a crit. Tangela doesn't need to be crit to die. Vileplume takes the hit, tries and fails to paralyze, and then 2 dies. Thank you, Susie, for lending me this awesome Pokemon. Erica tells me of a group of Lotad swimming in the Celadon Pond, so let's get one. This Lotad, how can I put this mildly, was a bit of an idiot. He couldn't even figure out how to water plants, even though all of the other Lotads were already doing it. He evolves into a Lombre, and eventually into a Ludicolo when he rummages through someone else's bag and finds a water stone. In that episode, Brock was trying to force his Lombre to spend time with a Mawile who had fallen in love with it for some reason. This was Brock's way to get closer to Mawile's owner.
Mawile! Are you sure that Ludicolo's not your type? Mawile.
What? That's just great. Oh.
Wait, where are you going? Looks like it's moved on to a side duck.
In other words, he was a Pokemon hustler. And speaking of criminals, let's face off against Giovanni. Basalt, the newly evolved Ludicolo, water pulses his Onix after taking a sliver of damage from Rock Throw. Rhyhorn lets her fully heal with a Giga Drain just in time for Kangaskhan. Basalt gets in 2 hits, but I probably should have swapped after the first Mega Punch to not risk a crit. Flint comes out on a couple of Tail Whips, Screeches, and even with -2 defense, his Rock Slide is still too weak. Stupid 45 base attack. Flint does eventually win after shrugging off a Mega Punch though. In preparation for the next gym battle against Koga, Shipworm evolves into a Steel form, Forretress. I haven't done the rocket stuff in Saffron yet, so all of my team is still under the level cap here. I start with Flint, who misses a Screech and is poisoned on the first turn. Not a great start. He heals the poison, hits Screech, and after several Rock Slides and some healing, Koga's first Coughing is defeated. I led with Flint so that she would be out here against the Muck, because Minimize scares me. Flint screeches a number of times as Muck minimizes, and occasionally uses Acid Armor. She tries to dig a bit, but it doesn't work and just gives Muck more time to minimize. Instead, Flint starts to Rock Slide, and after a couple of misses, manages to hit 3 times in a row for the knockout. Against the second Coughing, I bring out Shipworm in all her steel glory. 2 strengths defeats the Coughing as she is smokescreened. Wheezing continues to blind her because he has nothing else to do, and I tire of these shenanigans. Flint makes a return to Screech a single time, pivots back to Shipworm on a Toxic, who can see properly, and hits with 2 more strengths for the win. Moving ahead to Silph Co, Brock rudely interrupts Officer Jenny as she tries to take down Team Rocket. Naturally, she gets upset. Flint starts off with a lucky Rock Slide crit, immediately taking out Pidgeot. He must have been going for Whirlwind, which is a minus priority move. This baits out Wobbuffet. He is screeched 3 times. Since Wobbuffet has been using Counter in anticipation of getting hit, Flint instead uses the special move Dragon Breath to deal some chip. And now, a Rock Slide should be strong enough. Again, Onix's attack is super weak. This brings out Blastoise, but Basalt quad resists water, so that's an easy win for him, even though Blastoise keeps stalling with Protect. Basalt rain dances to activate Swift Swim and defeats the turtle in a few Giga Drains, getting fully healed. With the Mystic Water, the rain, and being 5 levels higher, a single Surf is strong enough to one-shot Gengar. Last but not least is Arcanine. Unfortunately, the rain has stopped at this point, so one Surf is too weak. Not that it much matters, as this dog still has Ember. Another hit, and I win. For that glorious victory, Flint finally evolves into Steelix, an actually useful Pokemon. It's actually a little bit sad that Brock didn't get to see his Onix evolve, because it happened while he was in Hoenn with Ash, while his Onix had been left in the Pewter City Gym. So he doesn't see Steelix until he returns back home during the Battle Frontier saga. Jenny, disgraced by yet another loss, abandons her post to force me to take on Team Rocket. But first, I need to get a free Pokemon here in the form of Mudkip. Brock's Mudkip was quite a large one, who felt the need to watch over and protect all of the newborn little Oxalotls. Brock eventually becomes friends with it, and it, much like Jenny, abandons its post to travel the world with Brock. He does eventually evolve into Marshtomp after training against Ash's Grovyle, and that's probably the last time he can touch a leaf without dying. He never makes it all the way to Swampert, unfortunately, so mine can't either. Though Basalt could easily take on Giovanni, I wanted to give Mudstone a shot. 2 Surfs take out Nidorino after he takes some damage, but he simply can't handle Kangaskhan, so I promptly swap to Flint on a Mega Punch. Since Rock Slide is not very strong, Flint screeches a bit, takes some more punches and rage, and Dig takes it right out. Basalt is double kicked by Nidoqueen on the swap, and I totally thought she would be faster, but apparently not. And that results in her being paralyzed, so now she's even less faster. Shipworm is able to tank some hits, responding with a single strength. On Rhyhorn, I pivot back to Mudstone on a Fury attack, and Surf a single time for the win. Moving ahead to Sabrina, I am not looking forward to this fight. My team is seriously lacking in special defense right now. In addition to that, Shipworm doesn't learn any bug or steel moves in this gen, so the normal type strength is one of the strongest moves he has access to right now. After a Calm Mind, it's thankfully enough to one-shot Kadabra. Venomoth starts by Psybeaming and takes more than half from strength. Just in case, Shipworm uses Protect, which actually blocks the Supersonic. Not that it matters, because the very next Psybeam confuses her anyway. But I use my last Person Berry to heal it and defeat the bug. On Mr. Mime, after a Calm Mind and a Strength, Shipworm sets up Light Screen in preparation for Alakazam. But she gets ahead of herself as she is crit, bypassing that Light Screen, and almost dies. Okay, onto her Ace, I do basically the only thing I can do and swap into Flint. She screeches before attempting and missing a Rock Slide while Alakazam Calm Minds. On the next turn, she digs, which not only avoids a future sight hit, but with that defense drop, Alakazam is one-shot. You know what? That fight actually went far better than expected, thanks to my steel Pokemon. The next encounter Brock gets is his Bonsly. This guy was caught near an undisclosed ninja school during the Battle Frontier, though he is quite a crybaby. Since Bonsly does not exist in Gen 3, I just catch a Sudowoodo. Brock does evolve during his Sinnoh adventures, so that's fair game. Next we have our Blaine battle. Mudstone starts off by being intimidated, but a Mystic Water Surf drowns the dog. And the little Fire Horse as well. The bigger Fire Horse outspeeds with a Stomp, but is also surfed. Last, his Arcanine misses a takedown, and does heal a bit after a surf. To show off my newest Mon, I swap to Petrified Wood on a takedown. Blaine heals yet again, but Rock Slide is a crit, and Arcanine dies. I knew that was going to be relatively simple. Before facing Giovanni, it's time for our last encounter, which is actually just an egg. We'll find out what comes from it soon enough. For now though, let's defeat this clear attempt to copy Brock's gym type. Once again, I lead with Mudstone to surf Rhyhorn. For some reason, my footage skips a bit here, but on Dugtrio, Mudstone is hit with a dig and surfs again. For Nidoqueen, I pivot to Basalt on an Earthquake. She takes another hit, while making it rain, and then outspeeds to surf. Nidoking suffers the same fate, and Basalt takes the opportunity to get fully healed by Giga Draining the other Rhyhorn. Well, those last 2 gym battles were ridiculously easy, but I have a feeling our Jenny encounter will not be. By the way, Here Brock has what is quite possibly his worst pickup line yet. And no, I did not make that one up.
Smell my fresh breath, Nurse Joy. It's as sweet as you are.
You might want a mint.
Since Jenny still starts with her bird, I bring along petrified wood. She is sand attacked, and rock slide is not quite strong enough, so she follows it up with a kick. Arcanine bites and flamethrowers, while wood hits only one of her attacks. Anticipating another flamethrower, I pivot into charcoal, who is promptly bit. Okay, now anticipating a dig, I swap to Mudstone, who is extreme speeded instead. Not doing a great job calling these moves now, am I? I have no choice but to risk a crit here. Mudstone survives the hit and surfs the Arcanine. I had expected Meganium to come out against Petrified Wood earlier, but he comes out now. Expecting a Giga Drain, Shipworm comes out and is earthquaked. Eventually I have to predict something correctly, right? Strength is quite a bit weaker than I had hoped, and since she is leech seeded, I swap into Basalt. She chips with Fake Out before swapping back to Shipworm, who heals Sleep with a berry. She stays into Strength, is put to sleep again, and leech seeded again. This is not going well. Basalt returns on an earthquake, Fake Outs, and pivots back to the still asleep Shipworm. She wakes up to Strength, but is put to sleep a third time. This is certainly not my best showing. I came into this battle woefully unprepared. I decide then to bring out Charcoal as a sacrifice. It's rough losing a Vulpix, but it's not going to evolve, so it doesn't really help me in the Elite Four. I did figure this would happen at some point in this battle. This lets me bring out Basalt to Fake Out and Surf. She could have taken another Earthquake instead of sacrificing Vulpix, but I need her as healthy as possible. After all, Gengar gets a critical Shadow Ball, bringing her down pretty low. Here I make a pretty major mistake. Even though I know she won't survive, I swap to Petrified Wood in an attempt to deal some damage, and it does not work. I should have brought out Flint instead, but I was concerned about him getting cursed, so I didn't do it at first. I think I should have though. For Wobbuffet, I can mess with the AI, alternating between physical and special attacking moves like Crunch and Earthquake. It leaves Wobbuffet unsure about what to do. Last, we have Blastoise. Thankfully, Basalt can easily survive a Surf, Fake Outs, Blastoise makes it rain, and then she gets healed with a Giga Drain. That was a close one. Another Giga Drain finishes off the hardest battle I've had since Misty. After proving himself stronger at every turn, Officer Jenny just gives up, giving Brock implicit permission to continue his creepy ways. At least, that's the way that Brock sees it. At this point, my egg hatches into a Chansey. Brock's egg became a Happiny, but that does not exist in this generation. It then evolved into Chansey in order to help some sick baby Pokemon, and some 500 episodes later, we see it's evolved again into a Blissey, where it's an assistant to Brock. You see, towards the end of his Sinnoh adventure, Brock puts aside his childish dream of becoming a Pokemon breeder, and instead wants to become a doctor.
That's why I'm planning to use all of my experience to become a Pokemon doctor.
A Pokemon doctor?
Which is why he can't follow Ash to Unova, because doctors need to study. Given his nature, I think it was an appropriate choice. Before continuing on with the game, I do want to highlight that Brock had two additional Pokemon I will not use here. A Krogunk and a Comfey. They simply did not exist in Gen 3, and I have no desire to put them into this game, so I won't use them. But I do need to mention that Krogunk was always good at keeping Brock in line.
I'd spend all my waking hours with Nurse Joy, except now.
This means I'm starting the Elite Four Gauntlet with only 5 Pokemon. But after the debacle that was the last Jenny fight, I put a lot of time and effort into these strategies. It doesn't necessarily mean they're good, but they were time consuming at least. Amethyst starts the battle to Calm Mind a single time. I don't want to spam that move, even though I could. It's still not enough for Thunderbolt to take out Dugong, but that's okay. I didn't do it for her. After taking some damage and a heal, Dugong is Thunderbolted to death. Cloyster first protects, and then outspeeds to Hail, but does fall in a single hit. The Calm Mind from earlier ensures that Slowbro is a one-hit KO, and he doesn't get a chance to yawn. Amethyst then heals Confusion from the Lapras, thanks to a Lumberry I just got, and manages to defeat Lapras in 2 hits after she takes a Body Slam. Though her health is decently low, as long as Jinx doesn't freeze her, I should be okay. After all, she is a special defensive tank. She also knows Flamethrower. Jinx survives even with a burn, heals, and lovely kisses. Amethyst takes a few hits, but eventually wakes up and responds with one more flamethrower. Without a Blissey, that fight would have been so much more difficult for my team. She is a pretty awesome addition. For Bruno, I lead with Basalt. He starts with a Rain Dance and avoids a Rock Tomb, though it wouldn't have mattered all that much. Onyx is then surfed. Even with Mystic Water and the Rain, Hitmonchan can take a hit and baits out a Rock Tomb to slow me down. Basalt heals a bit with Giga Drain after Bruno heals, and then surfs again. I do need to take a risk here on the Hitmonlee. Basalt takes a Brick Break and sets up the Rain again. She would survive a non-crit, but Hitmonlee misses a Mega Kick, so it wasn't an issue. Another hit then knocks him out. Okay, now it's time to risk another crit. I'm playing with fire right about now. On Machamp, Basalt heals with Giga Drain and avoids a Cross Chop, which is absolutely perfect. One more Surf leaves Machamp with a sliver of HP. Dang it, that wasn't supposed to happen. I pivot to Shipworm on a heal, who uses Zap Cannon until it hits and paralyzes. With that paralysis, Machamp should now focus on speed lowering moves like Rock Tomb and Scary Face. Shipworm hits with Return a few times before pivoting back to Basalt. She fake outs and then Surf finally defeats Machamp. And obviously, she has to Giga Drain Onyx to get not quite fully healed, but still a decent amount. Oh yeah, after taking a Double Edge. Okay, that fight was a bit on the rough side, but Agatha should be simple. I start with Amethyst once again. The first Gengar loves to spam Double Team, but I have Psychic. It's obviously not strong enough to one-shot, though it is closer than I expected. After a heal, Amethyst is confused, but hits through it to take out the first ghost. There's no reason to stay in on Golbat because Flint can take anything it dishes out. She is also confused, I've run out of Person Berries at this point, and she does hit herself several times, but only does minimal damage thanks to her insane defenses. Eventually she connects with 2 Rock Slides, taking out the bat. For Haunter, she decides to stay in, is mean looked, so now she is stuck, but a single Iron Tail connects for the knockout. Since that worked out so well, let's try it again. She is put to sleep and Shadow Balled several times, including a crit. Eventually she wakes up to Iron Tail, which surprisingly left Gengar alive. I did not expect that. After being put to sleep and nightmared this time, I pivot to Amethyst on a Shadow Ball. She actually does have a Chesto Berry, so Hypnosis, which is supposed to be 55% accurate but has hit 3 times in a row, doesn't actually do anything. Her Psychic, on the other hand, does something. Now Arbok has decent attack, especially compared to Amethyst's defense, so she runs away and is replaced by Shipworm. He has Return that does a little less than half, unfortunately. This lets Arbok heal, but several more hits takes it out for good, defeating Agatha. Told you that would be easier than Bruno. For Lance, I start with Shipworm and his awesome Zap Cannon attack. He misses once, sets up spikes, and hits on the second attempt. It's not quite strong enough, allowing Gyarados to heal, but after another hit and return, Shipworm is victorious. This brings out Aerodactyl, so I pivot to Flint, who takes 4 whole damage from Ancient Power. Let's not get crazy there, Aerodactyl. Wing Attack does a bit more damage, but nothing Flint can't shrug off. Her Rock Slides, on the other hand, destroy Arrow. Since she's taken so little damage, I leave Flint in to also Rock Slide Dragonite. The best move he has is Outrage, which still isn't all that strong. Dragonite ends up confused and knocks himself out as I pivot to Shipworm again. Dragonair paralyzes her, which only delays the inevitable, as Return is a 2-hit KO. The last dragon also outrages, but Shipworm is fully paralyzed. So let's bring out my secret weapon for this battle, Amethyst, with an Ice Beam. I had intended for her to defeat most of Lance's Pokemon, but it didn't end up being necessary. And so, without further ado, let's battle against the champion, who is none other, no it's not Jenny, it's Brock's mom, Lola. Yes, that's right, Brock has a mom who is not dead. Now, that may seem weird that I have to specify that, but in the dub, Flint claims that she died all the way back in episode 5.
Brock's heartbroken mother tried her best to hold things together, but sadly she passed away.
But that was not in the original version. It's just something the dub came up with, so she is very much alive. Which is unfortunate, because now she has no excuse for running out on her family. Being dead is a pretty good alibi. One of the best, in fact. But that's beside the point. When she does return, it's to try and take over the Pewter City Gym to make it water type, something that Brock cannot stand.
There's a hedge. I know. And flowers. I know. And I know.
Isn't it cute?
I'm sorry, son. There's water. The Pewter Gym is supposed to be for rock-type Pokemon. Why is there a lake?
We're gonna turn our gym into a laughingstock.
So we need to battle it out. As you might have guessed, she has water Pokemon, giving me flashbacks to Misty. But this time, I'm prepared. Once again, Shipworm starts the battle against Azumarill. Surf does a decent amount, but I'm hoping I can hit with a single Zap Cannon. The first one misses, but the second one doesn't. With that rabbit now paralyzed, I can safely pivot into Amethyst on a Surf. She is guaranteed to outspeed, which is good because that thing has Brick Break. A single Thunderbolt takes it out. Mantine comes out next and is promptly Thunderbolted as well. Vaporeon starts with an Acid Armor, which is fine because 2 can play at that game. Amethyst Calm Minds, and a second Thunderbolt takes out Vaporeon. Tentacruel first misses a Screech, not what I was expecting, but then he does Toxic on the next turn. I was prepared with a Berry, and Amethyst defeats the Squid. Gyarados actually does a ton of damage with Thrash, but still falls to Thunderbolt. Last is Lola's ace, Blastoise. He prepares a Skull Bash as Amethyst heals, so I pivot into Flint to take the hit and bait out a Surf. Or a Rain Dance too, I suppose. Basalt wants to try a Solar Beam strat, so she has Sunny Day, but is apparently slower than Blastoise, who makes it rain again. You jerk! Solar Beam now takes 2 turns, and its power is cut in half because of the rain. So, after hitting with a pretty pathetic Solar Beam, one last Giga Drain, and Blastoise is defeated. And Lola stops trying to change the gym. You did it, Brock! But this is not the end of his journey. Brock did go through Johto, and Hoenn, and even Sinnoh before leaving Ash, so maybe we'll see more of him in the future. Before you take off, I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon and YouTube members. I appreciate their support, and if you're interested, check it out for exclusive perks and content. Every little bit helps. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next region.